In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 favourite tarot decks of 2021. So get yourself a nice drink, settle back and enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. How are you all? I hope that you're well and enjoying the season, whatever you're celebrating at the moment. I hope it's been really joyful and, full of love and happiness and prosperity as much as possible. So this is a video I did last year, but I think I only did top 5 tarot decks, so this year I'm going to do top 10, and it's really my favourites, and also obviously lots of people in the community are doing videos like this at the moment. So Simon from the Hermit's Cave, Katie Flowers, Nina from Shuffle Tarot, lots of people are sharing their decks that they have used the most or that they feel are their favourites this year, and I want to just do the same. So I'm just going to get stuck right on into it, and there's no order at all. I wish there was, but there's not. First up, the Visceral Tarot. I love this deck. I picked this up in 2020 and absolutely loved it. I think this was one of my favourites for 2020. This deck is such an intuitive read, and it really does deviate from the Rider Waite Smith. There's so much in here that you can interpret and path work with and meditate on, and the images are just so beautiful. The majors are this sort of very finished, painted quality of artwork, whereas the minors, when we get round to one, that's a minor, but it's actually still looking quite finished. But some of the minors, they really look very unfinished and they're very sketchy. This is a good example. They are renamed, so you have spirals for earth, coral for the water suit, the cups, sparks for the fire suit, wands, and wings is your air suit, so your swords. I know some systems like to use swords for fire and wands for air, but I go with wands as fire and swords as air. Did I say that right? But anyway, this deck for me resonates in such a personal way. It's very dreamy, very watery. It just goes really deep to the heart of the matter, and working with this deck I found it really healing, and just a really beautiful practice for sort of a self-love practice, and just a deck that I know I'm going to get deeper and deeper with as I use it more. So this is an absolute favourite in my collection. It's one that I couldn't live without. Next up is a deck that didn't make it into my only 10 decks VR to Katie Flowers, and I was kind of gutted about it, and it's the Mary L Tarot. This is a deck I got at the end of 2020, and I used it quite a bit at the start of 2021, and I love it. Again, it's one that just goes very deep to the heart of the matter. It doesn't pull any punches, and it's quite a fierce read, I'd say. Again, the artwork is beautiful. There's a lot of very powerful artwork in here, and the guidebook sort of goes into depth around the meanings of the cards, and meaning is pulled from both the Rider Waite Smith and the Thoth Tarot, and I believe the Marseille as well. It's definitely a deck that at first there were some cards that were sort of, upsetting for me, or not upsetting, but I don't want to use the word triggering because it just is not the right word for the context, but definitely, made me feel uncomfortable, let's say, and in a similar way to the way the Deviant Moon did, and that is a deck, again, that is on my kind of forever list, and I suppose that one should be here as well. But for some reason this deck just really spoke to me this year. I was working with it more at the first half of 2021, but again, it just speaks volumes to me. I find it very good for shadow work, and again, healing and really getting to the heart of the matter. I use the same kind of descriptors for each deck. I think it's probably quite clear like what I look for in a deck, and yeah, what gives me the best results, I guess, from my readings. But I love this. It's really diverse and beautiful as well. There's just, this Ten of Swords is just spectacular. I love this deck, and I think perhaps it really should be in my forever deck list pile, but it's definitely in my top 10 for 2021. Next up is a recent acquisition, and one I shared in my most recent new decks in my collection video, and it is the Morriganic Tarot. This is a tarot deck about the language of flowers by Kevin J. Stanton, and I picked this up from a bookshop in the UK because the shipping was very expensive from the States. But it is a beautiful deck, and the production quality is really great. You get some extra things like a pin and some postcards and such. This is the deck. These are the backs. You've got these beautiful gilded edges, and it's plants, essentially, botanica. So the guidebook goes into what the plant is and how it relates to its corresponding tarot card. So I like to pull one of these daily and use it with an oracle card for the day and kind of meditate on the meanings. I find the illustrations just incredibly beautiful. Again, it's just a lovely, lovely thing to work with other tarot decks with as well. As a witch and as someone who's very interested in herbalism and botanicals and who works with herbs in magic and such, this is a really, really powerful deck for me. I feel like it kind of brings together the two worlds that I just adore. So I really, really enjoy this deck. I've been absolutely loving it, even though it's the most recent acquisition of all of the decks in this list. This has been one of my absolute favourites of the year. I love it. Next up was a bit of a wild card, and I had seen this deck I think on Joe and Michelle's channel at Boho Tarot, and then it was Danny from Danny Mystic who actually ended up prompting me to get this deck when I saw it on their channel, and it is the Black Lily Tarot, and it is just stunning. I love this deck, and I didn't realise, I think, how powerful this deck would be for me and how much I would work with it. It became a really personal deck, and a lot of these decks are, a lot of the decks that I love are, like I've spoken to. I love the way that they kind of incite emotion and bring things up from the inside. Again, a beautiful deck for shadow work because the images are so raw, and I think definitely working with trauma as well, like for me, that's what I'm talking about, for me, has been really, really powerful. And again, that sort of self-love, healing work, shadow work. I wouldn't suggest anyone do work with trauma or shadow work if they don't feel ready or if they don't feel that would be safe for them. And definitely, you know, if you don't think that shadow work is safe for you, then obviously speak to a professional and work perhaps with a professional first. It's something that for me is really powerful, and for me doing this work with decks like this has been really, really potent and powerful, and I've been moved to tears on a number of occasions with these cards. And I absolutely love the size as well. It's a deck I often find like, oh, I actually can't go away for a weekend without this deck. So for me, this deck has been really, really important for the year, and yeah, I've absolutely loved it, and it's definitely up there as one of my favorites now. It's growing on me even more every time I use it. It grows and grows on me, and I've been using it for sort of daily draws as well as larger spreads as well. So an absolute love for this year is the Black Lily. Next up is another deck that came into my collection this year, and I've absolutely loved it. I knew I wanted it for a while, but I just was waiting for the right time with budgeting and things, and it's the Darkness of Light Tarot. And I actually had this painfully on my shelf for so long because I was like, I'm gonna do a walkthrough, I'm gonna do a walkthrough, and it just never ever happened. And I was just desperate to work with the deck, so eventually I was like, you know what, I don't need to do the walkthrough, I'm just gonna work with the deck because I was just absolutely desperate to work with it, and I've absolutely loved it. I love the quality of the artwork. It's obviously very dark in tone. There's a lot of the sort of standard RWS symbolism that we're used to seeing. So you can see in the Devil card, it's a similar kind of situation to in the Rider Waite Smith, which I like. But again, it's just beautifully painted artwork and immersed in this fantasy realm, I guess. This one's one of my favourite cards actually. It just feels really, really joyful. And I've used this quite a few times, and it's just been a fantastic reader, especially for approaching Samhain and September and, you know, in this darker half of the year. I really, really like it. This deck has just been fantastic, and working with the Morrigan as well, I feel like the messages from the Morrigan convey really, really beautifully for me. So I really, really like it for messages from the Morrigan as well. Lots of different styles of reading. I would use this for an everyday reading. I probably wouldn't use it for any of my friends. Again, it's quite a personal deck for me, and I'm not so sure that they would like the symbolism. But for me, I absolutely love this deck. Again, one of my favourites. Next up is a deck that I found on Etsy a while ago, and I picked it up this year, but I'd had it on my wish list for quite a long time. And it is the Chthonic Tarot, and I haven't really ever seen anyone talking about this deck before. I've spoken about it a bit on my channel, but not that much. I did do a walkthrough if you are interested to see it. But again, this deck is just so, so beautiful for those kind of chthonic, deep underworld kind of energies, which I love, clearly. The illustrations, again, are stunning, and they really kind of evoke this very Morriganic feel for me. There's a lot in here about mythological creatures as well as deities, so the guidebook kind of explains the depictions of each of the cards, and it kind of immerses you in this world. It's very, very beautiful to work with. Again, it's quite a personal deck, and I've used this, again, for shadow work, but it's different kinds of things. It feels a little less raw, perhaps, and more like you can step into kind of archetypal energies with this deck. And again, working with the Morrigan, getting messages from the Morrigan has been really, really profound with this deck. I absolutely love it, honestly, and I'm so, so glad that I have this in my collection, even though it's not something that a lot of people talk about, actually. It is a really, really powerful deck and I absolutely love it. So if you want to see more about this deck, then do check out the video I shared with a walkthrough, because you'll be able to see all of the cards close up. Also, if you'd like a walkthrough of any of the other decks, do let me know. I'm quite behind with my walkthroughs. I've not uploaded several that I've done, and so I want to get to those. Do let me know if you want me to do any and I will put them on the list and try and get round to them. So this is currently in a bag that came with the Transformational Oracle of the Morrigan, but this is the Chthonic Tarot deck. Next up is a deck I've had since I think the middle of 2020, and it is the Mother of Crows Tarot by Rider Waite. I love this deck, again, for working with the Morrigan, Morriganic kind of energy. I really hate to say it because I do love the Crow Tarot, but this deck kind of replaced the Crow Tarot for me, especially when it came to connecting with the Morrigan and energies. And I sort of see this deck as quite similar to the Darkness of Light Tarot, but less similar to the Rider Waite Smith. So it's more kind of divorced from Rider Waite Smith, I think. And I think some of these images are quite frightening actually, and quite arresting, which I love. Again, quite a personal deck. Again, perfect for shadow work. I mean, this is just, it's quite terrifying. It's quite powerful really, but it really does evoke that crow energy. Again, working with crow energy is very important in my practice, so this deck is just beautiful, and there is a depiction of the Morrigan, or a character that looks very much like the Morrigan in this deck as well. I'm just trying to find it. So you'd think though that this deck would be really harsh, but it's actually not. My experience of it has been that it's been relatively gentle. Obviously, as I said, some of the imagery is not, so if you are a little bit shy of images that, you know, are confronting, then this might not be for you. But I do feel like it's actually not a deck that is so confronting that you can't use it. I think it's actually really, really beautiful. I think there are actually several cards that look like they have Morriganic figures within them, or I suppose aspects of the Morrigan within them. So yeah, you can pick and choose if you do work with the Morrigan, but absolutely I don't think you need to work with the Morrigan to work with this deck and enjoy it. It is just a beautiful, beautiful deck. I actually wish that I had managed to pick up one of the special edition decks with the red throughout. I think that would have been really, really lovely. So if that ever gets re-released, I'll probably try and pick that one up too. I will confess, since the Darkness of Light arrived, I've been sort of more wanting to work with that than this, but just getting this out, I do know how much it impacts me, and they are very different. So I don't think one should replace the other. That's why I wanted to include both here, because they are both really, really important for me. And again, I think that they are just the best that I've worked with this year. Next up is a deck that I shared in my recent acquisitions video, and it is the Numinous Tarot. This is a deck that I wanted the first time around and I wasn't able to get it then, so I was thrilled when Cedar McLeod did a second run, or maybe it was the third run. I am not entirely sure, you know, but this is the version that came out in 2021 anyway, and it's got this beautiful like linen finish on the backs. Again, I just think this deck is such a beautiful all-rounder. I actually think I would like to work with this deck with friends and for others, to read for others. And I did speak to this a little bit in my previous video. I do feel like it has a similar place to the Lightseers. I think that it could quite easily not replace the Lightseers, but do the same job that the Lightseers did. And as much as I love the Lightseers, I found that it was doing so much for me in terms of reading that I wanted, you know, to have some different options that gave me similar vibes, but that weren't that same deck. And one thing that I really like about this deck is obviously the inclusivity of it, and I love the art, of course. I love the rich tones and the beautiful symbolism within, and it has this very like modern day feel as well, and also just the colours. I love these colours, and this, I mean, this is one of my favourite cards in the deck. It is just absolutely spectacular and beautiful, and you know, I feel like it has such an important message for us now. And actually, one of the things I really want to do ASAP is read this book, because I've heard this is a fantastic guidebook and just general tarot book by Cedar McLeod. So I want to read this fairly soon, because I want to, you know, really, really get to grips with the deck and start using this for everyday readings and incorporate this for my readings for others as well, because I feel like this is such a beautiful deck. I just connect so deeply with the imagery. This deck also did remind me a little bit of the This Might Hurt tarot deck, which is another deck that I really, really would like to get. Of course, I wouldn't want one to replace the other though, so, and I've obviously got this one first, and it is an absolute firm and fast favourite now, and I can't wait to work more with it actually. And I think what I'd quite like to do is do a deep dive with this deck, because it's just really calling to me, it's singing to me, and I absolutely love it. So I'm so thrilled to have this, and this is definitely one of my favourites of the year. Next up, another deck that I picked up in the second half of 2021, and it is the Moon Baby Tarot. And I was thrilled with this because I love the Hoi Polloi and I always wanted to get one, and I really didn't think I would ever get one. And then Brant Palazzo of Moon Baby Tarot announced this, and in fact I think I was in one of Simon at the Hermit's Cave's lives when I heard, oh, you know, Brant's got this new Kickstarter, and I was like, huh? What? The Hoi Polloi Tarot? Oh my goodness. And I clicked over straight away, and the moment I saw it I was like, right, backing that. It was the fastest I've ever backed a deck on Kickstarter, and it was just because, look at these images, look at the colouring, and just look at the time, energy, passion and dedication that went into recreating this deck, recolouring this deck, so that people like me who love the Rider Waite Smith, who would always want to have a copy of this deck, could actually get one, was just really, really incredible. And there was no way I was ever going to pass up an opportunity to own this deck. So beautiful, actually really, really reasonably priced for a deck on Kickstarter, and the quality is just spectacular. The cardstock smells gorgeous. It is really like a soft kind of buttery matte, but it's not that sort of rose petal matte finish where you get fingerprints. It doesn't do that. And it's got this beautiful like pink edging that I love. It's so stunning. And I think Brant was very professional and always sending out messages and updating everyone. The campaign obviously did very well, and you know, was backed within I think 24 hours or 48 hours or something, so it did amazingly well. And of course Brant is in our community, and I was just absolutely thrilled to be able to support Brant with this. It's one of my absolute favourites, and the Rider Waite Smith is one of my favourites, and the only reason I didn't include the Centennial here is because I think I've included this, and you know, the Rider Waite Smith will always be my soul deck, but every year then it will be in this selection. But other than that, you know, this is my Rider Waite Smith of the year, and that's saying something because I picked up some magnificent Rider Waite Smith decks this year. So I was thrilled to get this, and I think this is absolutely one of my favourites of the year. Really, really happy to have this in my collection. I absolutely love it. And finally, this is the, I guess, most awaited deck for the year, I think, for me, and it's the SKT, the Spirit Keepers Tarot, the Revelation Edition, of course by Benabel Wen. And this deck was not a Kickstarter, but obviously an independent deck, and it has a little white book with it. I do have the medium white book from the original Spirit Keepers Tarot, although I never got the original Spirit Keepers Tarot because I wasn't able to at the time, though I did download the mages that Benabel made available on her website, and I printed them through Printer Studio, and I have worked with that deck once or twice with other decks as a mages only deck, which I loved, but this is just so beautiful. I love the colouring that Benabel has put into this deck, and obviously some of the cards have been reimagined. On Benabel's channel, she actually did do a series going through the different suits and some of the different cards. I think she did like a few each video for the majors, and she went through and discussed how she'd re-illustrated, reimagined and recoloured in the cards for the Revelation Edition, and that was so interesting to watch. Obviously have her book Holistic Tarot. It's just a wealth of knowledge, and yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled to have this, but a little bit overwhelmed, I will admit. And I have shuffled this because I actually shuffled it in my last video. I've not used it for a reading yet, but I am doing a little study group with Hazel Jane Tarot and some other people within the community, which I'm thrilled about, and everyone is coming with an absolute enthusiasm to learn and work with it and understand it more. So I think that's going to be so much fun. So that's definitely on my list for things I want to do and achieve. But yeah, for now, this is just, oh my gosh, I just want to work with this so much. I think this is definitely going to be a deep dive for me this year. So those two decks, I think I don't want to put too many on my list, but the Numinous Tarot and the SKT are definitely decks I'd like to delve into this year. So that wraps up my top 10 favourite tarot decks of 2021. There were some decks that I wanted to include but didn't because these ones were here and you just can't include them all. But this is the thing I'm sort of realising more and more as well. Like, I feel like I really need a deck and I really will work with it and love it, but then when it comes in, then it takes something away from another deck, and it's something that I've really been sort of thinking about recently. And I know I've spoken a little bit about this on my channel before and my VR to the tarot community, which again I linked that in my previous video as well. I've been talking about it a bit, but definitely there's things going on in my head about, you know, not being able to give enough love or enough attention to a specific deck, and it is starting to bother me. So I do know, whilst there are decks that I do want to have and bring into my collection, and decks that I have, you know, backed on Kickstarter, and decks that I'm waiting for, like the Barber Studios Victorian Romantic Tarot and other projects that are on the way, I definitely don't want those to take away from the decks that I have. So I'm going to start trying to cycle through, I think, the decks that I have to try to use them a bit more in oracle decks as well. So I'm also going to share my favourite oracle decks of the year as well, so look out for that video. So thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really, really hope that you've enjoyed seeing my top 10 favourite tarot decks. If you did enjoy the video, please do click the like button, share it with anyone who you think would be interested to see or who enjoys these videos in the tarot community. Or if you're interested in getting into tarot and you'd like some recommendations for great decks. Also, I'll leave my links in the description box for my Instagram and for my TikTok account, as well as a buy me a coffee page if you would like to buy me a coffee to show your appreciation for the videos I create here. Also, if you're enjoying my content, you'd like to see more from me, then please do think about subscribing, and while you're subscribing, don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you are enjoying your holiday and having a really, really blessed season, and get a good amount of rest. Really take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.